welcome to episode 6 of Southern Bowie Outdoors. We're going to take a little dip in those healing waters we've been hearing so much about all these years down at Sampson's mineral wells. And then we're going to take a ride across the Cumberland River out there on that big fine Jerry Mitchell. She's been parked since about 1992 and way past her heyday, but we're going to get down there and mess around anyway. And y'all going to learn a little history about Middle Tennessee and the Rome community in Smith County. So grab your popcorn, get you something cold to drink, kick your feet up, and let's enjoy the show. Man, you got to pick a lane. Which side of the road you going to be on? Come on now. Hello, friends. Today's what I'm going to call Drive-By Wednesday. Sorry about the unsteadiness of my camera abilities. But just wanted to share a few things with y'all. In my background here, this is old Sampson's mineral wells. Back before the interstate came through, the old folks used to call the interstate the Super. Called it the Super. And back before the Super came through, when Highway 70 was your main road from Pacific to the Atlantic, East Coast to West Coast, that was all they had. A whole lot better than them old logging roads with horses and buggies that they started out with, but a lot of the stretch of Highway 70 was the original road, and the Trail of Tears runs through this area as well. And this is where I grew up, childhood, The old Sulphur Well back here, back in the day, it don't look like much now, but I guess about the closest thing to Disneyland, this part of the country had ever seen. The old Sulphur Well, people would come down here to bathe in the sulfur water, and they thought it had healing properties. It was a kind of a snake oil kind of a deal, I guess. But now Verge Sampson had owned Sampson's mineral wells back here. Verge lived to be, he's 102 or 107. I can't remember now. Mr. Don Carr used to tell me, but there's a big giant picture of Verge in there, and smoked 2 packs of cigars a day or something like that, and he drunk sulfur water all day, every day. Now, if you're from the country and you know how sulfur water tastes, and you know what sulfur water can do to you, I'd say he's pretty ripe most of the time. Because that stuff, it'll mess with your digestion, and I'd say you can probably sweat it out pretty good too. It smells like rotten eggs. But people used to come from all over the country out here, and the old mineral well, there was a house that stood back here, and a childhood friend of mine, his daddy Don and Miss Sue grew up here, and when I was a child, they had leased this place and started kind of bringing it back to life. But originally, there was little cabins out back, and people would rent the cabins and stay in them. There's a big diner back here in the back. I'll show you it. I can't be down there too long because it's trespassing. They don't want anybody here. I don't think Mary Neal would put me in jail because my family used to rent the property and keep it farmed. And I think if she found who I was, she'd probably let me film all I wanted. But there's the old diner back here in the back. And over here along the road where you can see that truck, if it shows up going up that road, there were some cabins. And they'd rent these cabins, and they'd have a big diner and dining room hall, and I guess they'd have all kinds of shindigs and come down here and drink this old nasty sulfur water and bathe in it, and excuse me, and I guess it's just a vacation deal, man. It really was a big thing. So search Sampson's mineral well sometime online, and Verge Sampson was the owner, and I don't know the whole story behind the mineral well. I can just tell you my part of it, but back over in here was some old outhouses. And if you're from a city or you're a younger generation, you got an idea what it is, but if you've never used one, man, you don't know what you're missing. Because you got to fight the wasps and the mosquitoes while you're in there trying to do your business. And there might be a big old snake laying in there in the bottom of that hole, so you better look before you sit down if you got to sit down. But them old outhouses back here in the back, to use if you had to use the restroom. And the church would have outings down here, baseball games, and the Rome Rock City Fire Department. My grandfather was one of the key people in getting it built. They would have like a Halloween fest, like an Oktoberfest carnival kind of thing, and they'd have an old car, and Mr. John Meredith that owned the auto salvage would donate, and you'd go out there get 5 swings for $1 and just beat the fire out of that old car. And, man, it was good times, man. It was really good times. And if I could hit the lottery today and I could buy it, I'd buy this place, and it'd be the home of Southern Bowie Outdoors as far as stickers or t-shirts or anything like that, if I ever got big enough to have anything like that. But I've always loved this place. It's part of my childhood and part of home. But, you know, we all got places that are special in our heart, and this is one of them. And I sure was blessed to grow up in the community I grew up in, because all the old people, you know, used to say back in my day, people were better, people were this, people were that. And in a lot of ways, that is true. I've learned as I've gotten older. And, you know, we knew all these landowners, and we knew our neighbors, and we'd see them at church, and they'd go over at, you know, each other's houses on Sunday and have dinner. And it was a different time, just being in the, you know, late 70s and 80s. And I know my grandfather and him would talk about how much better it was, you know, in the 40s and 50s. And, but I can't tell you, I can't dream of it being that much better. Because, man, when I was a kid, it was awesome. You know, we had crime and poverty and everything that we had to deal with today, but people looked out for each other. And I miss that. I wish that hadn't went out of style. I wish that was still around. But I just wanted to share Sampson's mineral wells with you. I'm going to make another stop. Another place is close to my heart, and I'll show you when I get there. But one last look at Sampson's mineral well. And if I hit the lottery, future home of Southern Bowie Outdoors. That's right. So, well, here we are, stop number 2. We are on the deck of the legendary Jerry Mitchell. The Jerry Mitchell was a ferry that ran the Rome community over to Riddleton, Tennessee. And what you would do back in the day, and the old ferry was still running when I was a kid, the ferry would dock here, and you could come down the road, get up on the ferry, didn't cost you a dime, ride it right straight across the river over there, and they'd let your car off, they'd transport your car, or, you know, whatever you was in, motorcycle, a van, truck, whatever, they'd take you across the ferry. And it would cut off so many miles. You could get to Nashville quicker back in the day. You get over into Hartsville in just a few minutes. Hartsville, Tennessee. Sammy Kershaw filmed a video there. I wish I could remember the name of it. I'd tell you to look it up, and you can see Hartsville, Tennessee. But just look up Sammy Kershaw Matches, I think's the name of the song. And he filmed a video over in Hartsville, but give you an idea of what I'm talking about anyway. And but the Jerry Mitchell has a really, really, really strong, passionate place in my heart, and I'm a little chilly. It's an unseasonably cold day here in Middle Tennessee. It was 75 yesterday, and I think 52 today. So, but the Jerry Mitchell was in operation. Well, the ferry itself was in operation for, they said, about 2 centuries. There used to be an old ferry here called Rome's Friend, and I got a picture of it I'll post. Yeah, my mama sent me along a while back in the wintertime, but there was a mule that stood up on the front of Rome's Friend. That old mule would turn around in circles, and as that mule would walk around in circles tied to a pole, he'd turn the paddle wheel on the back of the original Rome's Friend, the old ferry, and that'd make the paddle wheel turn so you could take them across the river. Of course, then they upgraded and got the Jerry Mitchell, and retired the Rome's Friend. The Rome's Friend was an old wooden ferry, and I'm sure Uncle Ike ran it before this, but Uncle Ike started running the ferry in 1925 up until 1972, I think's right. And then Uncle Joe Davis Napier, and Ike Napier, Joe Davis took it over from there. Uncle Joe did. And Uncle Joe was running it when I was a kid. And this old machine back here has got an old 6-cylinder. I always heard it had a Chevrolet in it. I'm not sure. Daddy would probably know, or I could look it up. I should have researched it a little bit more, but just the history of it's what I care the most about. I love Chevrolets. I love Chevrolet engines, you know, but the history of the ferry, it don't matter what's turned it to me. But the old ferry got retired. She sunk to the bottom out here after several years of taking on water and neglect. And we tried, Mr. Frank Gibbs was up at the county. I think he was the county commissioner, and or on the board up there. But Mr. Frank done everything in the world trying to get Smith County to restore this old ferry and just make a monument out of it, because it's so much history here. You know, the soldiers used to do maneuvers down in here, you know, when they was training for World War II, and the history. There's old caves back in here that's underwater now. But this is a river where I do a lot of my fishing videos at. You'll see the old ferry in the background when I'm driving up the hill on a couple of the videos. But this old ferry's special to me, and my grandfather lived back up here on this old bluff. And as a little boy, I'd sit up here on this porch, a side porch, let my feet hang off the side, drinking a glass of water or a cold drink or whatever I had, and watch this boat go back and forth across the Cumberland River, you know, toting cars to each side. And that old motor didn't have a muffler on it, and if it did, it had 14 holes in it, and son, she'd just rumble. It's like an old welding machine down here just a burning. And I won't never forget that sound. But I was blessed to grow up with the childhood that I had. Now, my childhood wasn't perfect. None of us was perfect. And we all like to remember the good. But I was blessed to have a whole lot more good than I had bad. And the old ferry is a special place to me, and I just want to do a drive-by Wednesday, and I haven't really got a program ready for next week yet. I'm going to try to do some fishing this weekend. I've got to work Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, and possibly Saturday, so I try to do some fishing on Sunday, get us a show for this week. But I don't know, I was feeling kind of sentimental today, and I don't know, I just wanted to share some of this with you. It's some history here. But when they was training the troops back in World War II, they said, my grandfather had told me, he fought the Germans in World War II. He said they'd built a kind of a floating bridge is what they'd done here across the waterway, to where they could take the troops across into these big farm bottoms. I'll bring my drone down here sometime and get some shots where you can see there's all kinds of bottom land over here where they'd train. And there's locks up this river. There's lock 7 and lock 8 and lock 4. There's just different locks up the river. And they'd back the river up, and they'd build them big battleships up north, and they'd bring them down this river and transport them down to the Gulf. And they'd back the locks, take the locks and shut them, and they'd back that water up and they'd float them great big, I guess, destroyers and everything else down through here. And I imagine it was a sight to see. But it's just the old ferry is just special to me, and I'm getting off in a rabbit hole again, but it's just sad to see how it's been just taken advantage of. It's just sad because they've stolen everything out of the engine room except for the block itself. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time before somebody takes it. Started busting the windows out and graffitiing and painting all over it. It's just, like I was talking about the sulfur well, if I hit the lottery and I can make a deal with the county, I don't care what it costs me, this old ferry will be sitting out there at the sulfur well, and the Jerry Mitchell will be restored. He was named after a war hero, Jerry Mitchell was, and it'll be restored, and it'll be set up out there, and it'll be a plaque and a monument and a history of what all this old ferry has done in its day. And I'll definitely research it and get all the history I can get. But I'll give you a walk around here and let you take a look at it. But it's heartbreaking. For me, it's heartbreaking. But the old ferry it's just sad where it's sunk and they pulled it out and then it's nearly went underwater again, and it's just sad. There's the old forward and reverse shifter. Of course, there was a paddle wheel. You can see what's left of it back here on the back. Old tree fell over on it. So like I said, y'all pray for me I win that lottery, because Southern Bowie Outdoors will be at the old Sampson's Mineral Wells, and you'll all be welcome. We may even build some cabins out there where a couple of you can spend a night, or build us a campground or something. You can bring your campers or pitch a tent. But Mr. Don and them would, they'd have bands come out, local bands, and have music, and it was a good time. It was a really good time. You just had to keep these old redneck Southern boys from drinking, because they get a little rowdy every once in a while, but Mr. Don could handle them. But the old ferry is it's a shadow of what it once was. It's just a shadow. But I promise you, as sure as the sun comes up in the morning, if I ever get blessed enough to figure out how to get it moved and how to get it bought, she'll be sitting out there at the Sampson's mineral wells, and it'll be a sight to see when I'm done with it. Shoot, we may even have volunteers from the show if y'all want to come out and help work on the ferry. We'll name everybody on a plaque or something that's come out and helped paint or helped weld or, whatever. But pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. I had 2 generations of my family stood here ahead of me and run this old thing, looking out them windows, carrying the cars across. If you've never seen nothing like this, it's pretty interesting. And to know the history is even more interesting. There's a lot more to the history than I do know, but my battery's going down on my camera. Excuse me, but I'll throw a picture up with the ferry back in its heyday, kind of show you how it looked. But the Jerry Mitchell is sitting here right now, just waiting to be, I don't know, waiting to be restored, waiting to be brought back to life. So we'll see what happens. Hey, miracles happen every day. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, too, getting all melancholic, Clay Walker, if y'all have ever heard of him, he was a country singer, still is. Back in the 90s, I think Clay's had some health problems the last 10, 15 years or so. He suffers, I think, I keep swearing to it, but I think he got diagnosed with MS. I think's right, and he's wrestled with that for many, many years. And my sister-in-law passed this past Christmas, just a day or two after Christmas, and MS is what had got her. And she'd battled it for years. Sorry, I'm kind of cold. Sound like I'm about to cry, but it is sad, but I'm really cold. Well, Clay Walker filmed a video down here called Live Until I Die. It was off his debut album, and of course they were people from Nashville and I guess California, and they had folks dressed up all fancy and trying to look country and talk country. And I'm just telling you, because I know from experience, you can act the part, but there's some people that pulls it off, I guess, pretty good. But country is not just, it's bred into you, man. It's a way of life. It's a different mindset. A lot of people think it's backwards. I don't know. It don't really matter to me because I'm proud of who I am. But Clay Walker filmed that video down here, and of course me, I was a kid. I was probably about 14 or 15 years old, and the old ferry was still in the water then. I don't think I think it was out of operation, but nobody was running it, the ferry anymore. And the ferry was sitting out here in the water. Of course, they had a big bonfire. If you see where my truck's sitting there, they had a bonfire about where I'm standing, right along in here. And they took a roll of toilet paper and tied a string from up there at the top of that bluff, and they come all the way down here to this bonfire, and I guess they put lighter fluid on that toilet paper, and you can see it in the video. You see this big fireball coming down off the bluff, and it hits that big old pile of wood, and bless his heart, old Clay about pooped himself. I think they didn't expect it to go up like it did. They used way too much gasoline. They probably should have used diesel fuel, but they wanted that effect, that quick boom, Well, they got it, and it was hot. It was hotter than Hades when that fire went off, but it was good times, man. There's a picture. I got a picture. We was laughing about it, and I screenshotted that video. You can see my 15-year-old big old melon head with glasses on in the background and a flat top. I had a flat top in, I'm pretty sure. But I was about 15, probably a freshman in high school. So Good time. So if you want to see the ferry in its heyday, you can actually see some footage of it. You can watch that Clay Walker's Live Until I Die, and you'll see the old ferry boat, you know, when it still looked good. Back before it was pretty much retired, but before it got vandalized and just destroyed. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you on my Wednesday. I guess I called it my Wednesday drive-through. I should have called it a Wednesday walk-through, because I'm walking through all these places. You know, Hot Rod loves Nina back in 2010. I don't know if Hot Rod and Nina's still together or not, but they loved each other 11 years ago, almost 11 years ago, so maybe they're still together. Oh, I don't know. Nina loves Danny over here. So, or maybe Danny's Hot Rod. I don't know, but if Danny ain't Hot Rod, I'd say Hot Rod's gonna be pretty upset. I know I would be. You let me find Kelly loves dog leg or somebody written on here. Me and Kelly gonna have trouble when I get home. That's Round Lick Creek in the Cumberland River. Beautiful out here today. And I can't promise you, but if you was to get up this way and do some fishing, shoot me an email at southernbuoyoutdoors@aol.com. I might tell you a spot or two you can go to, at least where you can catch a couple little ones, but I ain't gonna give you all my secrets. I can't do that. I hope you enjoyed it. Just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me share some of my childhood history with you, and Tennessee history, Middle Tennessee history. And like, subscribe, tell your mama and them about us, and ring that bell, baby. I sure would appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday.